Hey, you guys, what's up? It's Sophia, and I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am your host. If this is your first time, She Emerge is a community of sisterhood. This is a space where you are able to lean into to all things sisterhood, faith and mental health, family relationships, lifestyle. It is a community that is so able to share a wealth of information on your healing and wellness journey. Let's delve into today's topic. Why support system decreases isolation. So, when we look at support, we are able to think about how we develop and utilize resources to decrease social isolation in the sense that when we are surrounded by those that we love. We're in a community. We have a circle of friends who are there to support us on our wellness journey. Then you're all the better for it. So you think about awareness. As I've often said, you cannot heal from it if you're not addressing it, right? So name it, heal from it, claim it, live it, so you can emerge. Let's think about a structure in terms of what you're hoping this community will look like for you. How will you find this useful? When we have support system in place, we're able to identify those support system by talking about our feelings, our thoughts with understanding. This is not a space where you're judged. You can be your authentic self. You can either talk to your therapist or your counselor, right? Wherever you may find yourself able to feel safe, listened to, and understood. When you are considering a support group, if you're navigating depression, very often, a lot of my clients have gone to support groups online and they're able to not only share what they are navigating, but they are in an environment with others in similar, experiences that they're able to share. So, whether you consider going to a support group, you're spending time with people you love, you're also engaging in activities, right, in a supportive space. Let's look into how you can make a list or a plan. As I've often said, again, we're going to revisit that. When we prioritize, then we can activate those plans. So, here are some actionable steps for you to take that I will share at the end of this episode with you. So, let's look at, you know, that support system, how you're able to utilize your support system, some of the activities that you can participate in to decrease isolation. If we're looking at depression, for instance, depression loves isolation. Depression loves to invite you to, a space where you're alone. So, guess what happens? The more that you're alone, and I understand there are people who consider themselves to be extroverts as well as introverts, and that's okay. That's okay. Once you are aware of your capacity, what you have the capacity for, the real estate you have to, you know, be around people, how much of that you're able to, invite into your space, your private space, then I would say that's a good start. Self awareness is key, insight is key. So know where you are, and let's look at, if you're looking at the total self care, if you're looking at the way that you are able to incorporate self care into your own journey, then that's going to be helpful for you. Your emotional health is just as important as your physical health, as your social health, as your mental health, as your spiritual health. All of these identifying ways of being is important. So, your support system is equally as important as the way that you take care of you. How you show up for yourself is important. So, the more you are able to identify what you're navigating, identify what you need help with, the better you are for it. As I mentioned before, if you're able to talk to your therapist or your counselor, you are able to participate in, a support group, that's going to be helpful for you. When we're able to look at, you know, who's in your circle, you're able to have a level of comfortability in terms of what you're able to process, especially with your therapist. If you are participating in therapy, weekly sessions, you're able to have an authentic, collaborative relationship with your therapist, then I would say kudos to you, because the more you are able to process what you're navigating, the less isolating you will feel, because you have a support system. That's the important thing about a support system. Whether you have a support system in your church circle, in your women's ministry, that's going to be important for you. A support system in your youth ministry. A lot of churches, they have ongoing youth services as well as a youth ministry department where you're able to process with your leader or your team what you're navigating, and you feel a level of comfort in that space. That's going to decrease isolation. If you're in a women's ministry and you have an ongoing meeting set up, if you're able to identify women that you can feel safe with and you can share, it debunks the myth of you being alone. As often stated, no man is an island, right? We all need community. We heal in community. We grow in community, right? And it's a journey. I understand that. It's a journey, especially if you're navigating grief. Grief is a process. No two individuals, as I've shared before, no two individuals heal alike. No two individual journey is the same. Your process will look different from your sister's process, your friend's process, your mother's process, whoever, your process is unique to you, right? There is definitely a time when you're able to share, when you are able to feel safe to talk about what you are facing. That's going to be helpful for you. As I've said, when we are able to identify the problem saturated stories, when we are able to identify with our own narratives, because we all have stories. We all have stories, right? And when you're able to hone into that space of awareness, and this is what the awareness is. When we are able to work to increase awareness, then we're able to keep a journal, write down those thoughts that comes up in our daily routine, positive thoughts, negative thoughts. Because guys, guess what? You cannot change the way you think until you have tapped into that space and have gained insight into what's happening so that you can better able to understand what the situation is, what the presenting concern is, and you're able to talk about that to yourself as well as to others about the situation. And yes, there is something we consider in the clinical space as self talk, right? So if you have those internal monologues with yourself, not those self sabotaging messages that may come up and negate who you are, right? Suppresses who you are, not that. I'm talking about those um, messages that you're able to process, you're able to identify, because now it's all about the awareness, right? Remember, I said earlier, you cannot heal from it if you're not addressing it, if you're not aware of it. So, the more insightful we can become, the more thoughtful that we are, then the better we're able to heal. So let's look at how we're able to um, look at the negative thoughts and the statements that comes up for us. So once we have identified the negative thoughts, the negative patterns that shows up for us, then we're able to be consistent in our efforts to work through the presenting concerns. So what are the identifiers in terms of how are we able to monitor those thoughts as we consider the progress that we're making in a supportive space? Again, once we're able to journal, then that's going to be helpful. Look at what the distresses are. If I may take Rose, for example, so ironic, it's my last name, right? So we want to be able to look at this acronym. How are we relationally? How are we doing occupationally? How are we doing socially? How are we doing emotionally? And if we're able to identify where we are, then we're able to work through the distresses that shows up in our healing journey. When we look at the awareness, we look at the negative self defeating messages, because remember, we all have the automatic messages, but the distorted messages are what we would then say, let's work through those distorted messages. These are some of the factors, the contributing factors. If you have already accessed services and you're able to work with your therapist, these are the contributing factors, the patterns, being able to identify the patterns generationally, right? Looking at your family of origin to see what are some of those patterns that shows up for us. What are some of the identifiers when we become anxious, right? So when anxiety shows up, when anxiety is a part of that contributing factors, and it um, wants us to isolate more, then I would say these are the patterns that you would look at to be able to have that insight, that awareness that shows you that support system is going to be important for you, right? And so when you are able to remind yourself then of those emotional distresses, you're able to not suppress it, but you're able to understand it, you're able to process it, you are able to work through it. This decreases isolation, guys. Isolation will have a difficult time with you as you navigate presenting concerns, whether in, you know, a therapeutic space with your counselors or in a support group. That's going to be helpful with trusted individuals so that you can heal holistically, mind, body, spirit. So, as you continue to monitor those negative self defeating messages, right? As you continue to identify where you are in your healing journey, I would say you are on your way to wellness. So, as I wrap up this session, how are you able to utilize support system? Talk about your feelings or your thoughts with an understanding person, talking to a therapist or a counselor, talking to, a trusted leader within the ministry that you're a part of, women's ministry, youth ministry, um, decreasing isolation so that you're not alone, going to a support group, spending time with people that you love, people that you consider to share what you're navigating. Some people have pets, right? And that's okay too. When you're able to prioritize your self care, that also helps you in your supportive spaces. So, if you're able to make actionable plans and steps, that perhaps could look like making a list of things that you plan to do or have done, that also decreases depression that you are navigating, anxiety, right? So, you prioritize your healing journey. If you're able to cultivate a space of reinforcing a lifestyle that increases how you take care of you, remember, self care is not selfish, and this will be helpful in your supportive spaces as you prioritize self care, taking care of you, decreases the triggers as well as you work through the presenting concerns with your therapist. So I hope that something I've shared today, resonated with you, and you're then able to, respond to those moments. When isolation shows up, you have already gone ahead because you have noticed when you are in a supportive space, it is helpful to your overall well being. Again, why support system decreases isolation? Because you're able to talk out those feelings you have. You're able to show up for you. And if you're able to do that, it's going to require one step at a time, guys. Remember, your healing is a process, it is not a destination, it is a process. So, one step at a time, uniquely as it may be, no two individuals' journey are the same. So, as you emerge, I want to encourage you, show up for you and be cognizant of those who show up for you so you can decrease isolation. Remember, you're not alone. And in this community, we value your wellness, we value your healing. Thank you guys. That's it for now. Stay blessed, stay well, take care of you.